Welcome once again to Cinemaholics, where we discuss the biggest and best films coming to theaters and streaming online from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm John Negroni. I'm the film editor for The Young Folks. You know how that goes. All right, but he's from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, fun area, and he is a news and features writer, or news and entertainment writer, I forget which, for Collider.com. It's Will Ashton.
Hey.
Will, we have a special guest today.
Yes, we do.
He's just kind of sitting there waiting. We should put it off. Let's make him keep listening to us banter. How was your week, Will?
It's been okay. How you been?
I'm doing pretty great. How many movies did you watch this week? A lot?
This past week, not too many. I was actually watching a decent bit of TV for a Slant magazine review that's now been
Severance?
No, I watched that the week
It's like I'm just listening to the podcast like any other week.
You hear something, Will?
What is that? Is that some white noise?
Yeah, so we have a special guest, as I mentioned, help us review Uncharted, and his name is Evan Griffin, and Evan is the games editor at theyoungfolks.com, one of our fine colleagues. Evan, welcome to Cinemaholics for the first time.
That's me. Thank you. I'm actually very excited to be here because I love talking about films, and I said prior to the podcast, I think you guys do a great job. I used to try to do some podcasting, and I know how challenging it can be, and you guys put out a great show like all the time.
So you're so nice.
It brings me many comforts on my commutes.
I'm so flattered. I'm just going to quit. Let's just end the show right here on a high note.
All right. You had a good run.
This was good. Uncharted, yes or no? And then we're done. But yeah. No, Evan, we're super glad you're here. Super glad because we needed a ringer. A lot of the listeners know this already. They've been listening to the show for some time. And Will Ashton is not exactly a gamer. He doesn't have a gamer card. He likes some Mario Party 2 and some Tony Hawk.
He doesn't have an Xbox gamer tag.
No.
I
doesn't know what that is.
Hours upon hours of Mario Party 2 and
Legit,
Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, and Pac-Man, and
and that's that. So,
I'll be honest, Will, those are all
Pokemon Snap.
Those are all legit tastes. You're golden, man.
All right.
Honestly, modern gaming is so frustrating. I think you're good there.
I've had fun with those games, and I was just like, why do I need the other ones? I'm getting my money's worth out of these ones. So
looking forward to Sonic the Hedgehog 2 review coming up next month, or April, I guess.
Is that next month?
It's April.
Oh, okay.
But no, Evan, so I have a game question and I have like a movies question because I like gaming and all that. But games wise, what are you looking? Are you going to play the new Horizon? Are you going to be playing Elden Ring when that comes out? What do you got your eyes on these days?
So, oh gosh, for upcoming games, here's the thing. I grew up a Nintendo kid. I'm literally wearing a Metroid shirt right now. So the thing that
you wrote the Metroid anniversary piece, huh?
Made me lose my mind last year was when they announced a new Metroid 2D game, like for the first time in years. So like I'm one of those diehards. So like on March 25th, if I'm gonna pick up a game day one, which I don't do super often, it's probably gonna be Kirby in the Forgotten Lands, because of a 3D Kirby that functions like 3D Mario is like a great idea to me. Elden Ring, I appreciate the hype on. I've yet to really find a FromSoft game that I can really get into. Dark Souls
really
just hasn't really clicked with me over the years. I like Sekiro a little bit.
I've only played Dark Souls. I haven't played Sekiro. I haven't played Bloodborne. I'd like to get to them at some point, but I love Dark Souls.
I have a hard time breaking into those, and I appreciate them so much over the years because their roots are in the older games that I've loved for a long time. But honestly, like I'm more interested in the new Armored Core. Right?
Really? When's that coming out?
Oh God, they only just announced it.
It's going to be a minute. Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's gonna be a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just playing Halo Reach in the meantime.
Yeah, I have Game Pass. I have a Switch. I have a PS4. So like, if I'm gonna play PS4, I'm probably gonna play. I played Nier Automata on it last year. I played Control, I really loved. Spider-Man Miles Morales, I had a blast with. Horizon, I have installed, and this is the kicker with being the editor for video games, I have to dabble in so many video games that I can't commit to any one of them.
That's so sad. Wait, and you're talking about the first Horizon or the new one that just came out?
Yeah, the first Horizon.
I've never played the first one.
They gave it out for free last spring or last summer. And I'm like, I'm going to download this. It's a complete edition. I haven't been able to touch it.
I missed that gravy train. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You can't see it, but Will Ashton's eyes, they're not rolling necessarily.
They're glazing
it's
over.
Just the pupils have disappeared. And he's
tuned out. I just don't know a thing you guys are talking about. I've heard of PlayStation and I've heard of GameCube or whatever else
Crash
you're talking
Bandicoot, right? Yeah.
That sounds familiar. Wasn't he at the beginning of this Uncharted film?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You know what? We got a glimpse of him, and what's funny is like just before this movie came out, Tom Holland was, I don't know if it was like a threat or just a vague idea or a suggestion. Where I don't know if it was the same thing as I'd like to see the Amazing Spider-Man 3, but he's like, oh yeah, I would star in an A24 style Jack and Daxter, the precursor legacy movie.
What
and
kind of
like
what? He just took a bunch of words and put them together. Like, although Jack and Daxter,
no, that's actually the first Jack and Daxter game.
Yeah, that game was pretty heavy.
But that's the game that put Naughty Dog on the map. Then those are the guys who made Uncharted. So I think that was kind of just an idea of like he was in an interview and he was thinking of other games from the same studio or something like that.
Fine.
I don't know.
Tom Holland, I think he's successful enough that he can basically make anything, and everyone will show up to the theater, including Will Ashton and his sister.
Honestly, Tom Holland, he's set and he knows it. He's been working his tail off since he was cast as Spider-Man. I mean, you could say for like 10 years when he was in that what was the tsunami movie with
In the Heart of the Sea, or no, that was the Tsunami movie.
Well, yeah, he was in that. The Impossible, right?
Yeah, The Impossible. Yeah, with Naomi
I didn't
Watts.
see The Impossible.
Yeah,
it's a good movie.
Yeah, he was like a kid in that. Like since then,
That's like 2012. Sheesh.
Wasn't he?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like in West End, what's he? Billy Elliot.
Yeah, he was in the musical thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it was like a quick thing. He's in so many movies. Is he one of the only like A-list actors who like people will just go see him in anything, or is that speaking a little bit too much? Like I get Chaos Walking and Cherry weren't big hits,
I was gonna say he doesn't. I mean, I don't know how this movie is doing, but I don't think he is an A-list star yet.
I don't know if he's the same kind of box office draw that like people who are inside baseball like us might think that he is. I think it's just that like he hit that lightning bolt with the Spider-Man casting.
Is he the new
people
Chris
turn
Pratt?
out in droves for Spider-Man?
Is he the new? Does he have like the Marvel connection? And is he Uncharted is kind of his Jurassic World? Is he going to start putting out these kinds of things more? I'm just saying.
I think that Tom Holland has a very long career ahead of him if he wants it. Which recent
if Zendaya
statements
wants it.
If Zendaya wants it, he's recently threatened to retire and settle down with Zendaya and buy a house.
Me too, but that doesn't mean
maybe he won't. Maybe he won't do any more Uncharted's and Marvel films. I don't know, and I fully respect him if he makes that decision.
If he and Zendaya just retired and they had their own little cottage by the sea, I'd be like, you go, you do that.
Yeah,
respect.
Just invites Kevin Feige over for drinks.
Yeah. Why not?
Oh man. But honestly, like I really do feel like if he continues doing some acting, he's got a lot of ground to cover. I really feel like we haven't seen all he has to offer.
Okay, here's my movie question before we, because I can't forget this part, right? I just want to get a sense of your film tastes. What's a kind of movie? It can be a genre or an example of a movie. Kind of movie you love, and a kind of movie you hate.
Oh boy.
There are wrong answers, kind of all over, by the way. I know it's just your opinion.
I'm kind of all over the place with my taste in film because like I grew up on Jurassic Park 200 times over, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It is like those things are like seared into my brain.
Ooh, hot takes. I don't know a lot of people that love those movies.
Oh yeah, no, I know, but you know, as I've gone into film journalism over the years, and then eventually I kind of flop between games journalism and films journalism. You know, my taste has expanded, but like honestly, like my favorite movies in recent years are really experimental or animated films. So for instance, like my favorite films last year were probably like Titan. Which won the Palme d'Or. I really loved that film.
Will liked that movie.
But like my favorite animated films are like Promare by Trigger and Nausicaa. Like out of all the Ghibli films, that's the one that's stuck with me.
Because you like anime more too, right? Like because I love anime, but Will and I never talk about it because he does. I don't think he knows what anime is.
I wouldn't say that I'm an anime expert, but I've watched the essentials over time. Like even when the new year turned around, I finished the original Cowboy Bebop for the first time, so that's kind of left like a vacuum. So
Evan,
I've been watching more anime.
You're a game guy, so I got to ask if you been watching the Shenmue anime? It's only 3 episodes in.
I have not. Not
oh
yet.
My! Well, did you play the Shenmue games? That's an even darker question.
I dabbled. I dabbled in Shenmue, and it's a little stilted for me.
Stilted.
I didn't play it when it was new, so it didn't stick with me.
I didn't either, but I mean, I did the first time I played it. I don't
know how many people really did. It came out in the Dreamcast.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I was living in Puerto Rico and we had nothing else to do. And my cousin had just got it for the Dreamcast. We were stuck at his house all day. It was too hot to go outside. And he was playing the first Shenmue, and that started my obsession. And I've even played parts of Shenmue 3. But I had to put it down because I was like, this is unplayable. But I'm so excited about this anime. I know you just dabbled, but you should absolutely pick it up. It's on Crunchyroll and Adult Swim. I'm like literally like, Evan, when I saw episode 3 came out yesterday and I was like, it's already out, like the kind of smile, I was just like by myself, but my face, like Will's never seen me smile like that for obvious reasons.
So what you're saying is it's better than Shenmue 3.
I mean, you can't even compare them. It's just like, hey, yeah, there's garbage on the side of the street. I don't think it's as good as this ice cream cone. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So you are a true Shenmue fan. Then.
I love me some Shenmue. If people don't know what Shenmue is, and they're like, "What can help me out?" Super Eye Patch Wolf did a great video about Shenmue on YouTube. Super worth your time. It explains the cult.
Lad.
Oh yeah.
I absolutely love that lad. I describe his Garfield video to people, and I
sent it to Will. Sideways. Will was like, "I'm not watching that." Well, actually, no, Will, you did watch the Garfield video, didn't you? That he did.
Is that the one that was feature length?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I started it, and you sent it to me when I was at work, so I was like, "Oh, I'll watch this later," and I didn't get the chance to finish it. But I was pretty intrigued from what I saw.
It's good stuff. I didn't finish it either, so no shame. But no. So one thing, Evan, we're going to talk about Uncharted right now. It's happening. We got to get into it. And one thing I want to kind of preface this whole conversation with is it's obviously a video game movie. We've talked about plenty of video game movies over the last few years, me and Will, and plenty of guests. But I do, since we have somebody who does this for professionally, writing about games and also film, I do want to sort of preface that I hope we can talk about the relationship between the mediums. Kind of, let's get into the nitty gritty of that. It's really interesting.
The relationship between video games and film, and the genesis of video game films, and the causality of the two is something that's been haunting me for a very long time.
Haunting? Well, okay. Yeah. Not fascinated, not intrigued. You're scared of it. I love it.
Yeah.
I you know what? I kind of connect with that. What were you going to say, Will?
I was going to ask, so before this movie, what are some video game adaptations that, in your opinion, have worked?
I just
kind of want to get like a general idea.
I actually have a short list.
Super Mario. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay. I don't know if either of you have seen the Super Mario Brothers movie.
I've seen it at least a few times. Yeah.
We had. Well, okay. Will didn't have cable, but
okay. So I've broken down personally for me. The difference between video game movies is kind of like a triangle here, right? We have a Triforce.
It's like a How I Met Your Mother sort of graph that Barney Stinson would do.
So we have a
Barney graph.
Video game movies that work, video game movies that don't work because they're too faithful, and video game movies that don't work because they are unfaithful. And I feel like there's probably some wiggle room based on people's individual taste. I argue video game films that work technically, you're looking at Lara Croft Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie. That's kind of like, it really kind of came out around that time of like the Brendan Fraser Mummy, and people were still kind of hungry for physical sets and stunts and like gunfighting, and CGI was still a little new. I think that one was unique in that it drew a lot of audiences, like more than other game movies ever could have at the time. Same with goes for Mortal Kombat 95, right? I feel like that one kind of captured the spirit, but it really just was like, it was also just Game of Death, Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon, like that format was already set. Like you didn't need to mess around with that much. Detective Pikachu, I think, worked because the people who were writing it understood what people. What's that?
I said, now we're talking. All right.
Yeah, right. So, but here's the thing. Detective Pikachu is a brand that is beyond video games. It has an anime,
Right.
it has movies, it has so many other little details of world building that allowed them to write that out. And they were able to, it has nothing to do with the Detective Pikachu game. They just took the concept of a Detective Pikachu. So the unique world building of the city worked. And you also had Ryan Reynolds, who was very charismatic and really, I feel like, kind of redefined Pikachu and actually turned Pikachu into a character instead of just like a brand icon. And then you go off the beaten path and you find stuff like Silent Hill, which is
one of the best.
I
was gonna say,
I think so.
I mean, for me, I feel like it's Silent Hill and Detective Pikachu, because those two movies are more about establishing the atmosphere and building what I feel is the aesthetic of the game, but not really trying to replicate the story so much. And
Absolutely.
I feel like those, generally, when I think video game adaptation, if it works, it's more about kind of bringing that world to a feature as opposed to like trying to recreate the experience of playing the game, which is something like Hitman or Max Payne. They try to do that, and I think they just fall apart for that reason.
Yeah. I don't like the Resident Evil
I forgot
ones,
about the
by the way.
Hitman movies. There were two of those.
The first Hitman movie, I think, is some fun. And I'm a huge fan of the Hitman games,
Sure.
so I wasn't super satisfied.
I enjoyed that first Hitman movie in the same way I enjoyed like the first Punisher movie.
I thought you were going to say like the same way I would enjoy like a knockoff Burger King in another country. It's like it got the job done.
No, they were kind of like those were like Taken before Taken a little bit.
A little
if you
bit.
kind of get what I mean.
Well, there are at least one or two sequences in it that are actually pretty impressive, like just technically impressive. Okay. Do you guys know what the highest rated video game movie of all time is?
In
terms of Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, Rotten Tomatoes. I didn't know if this was IMDb or what you were referring
Just Rotten
to.
Tomatoes. Well, IMDb. We're trying to use science.
Rated video game movie.
Yeah,
it has to be Detective Pikachu, right?
It is not Detective Pikachu.
Okay.
No, Detective Pikachu is number 2. Detective Pikachu has a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's Sonic, right?
It's not Sonic.
No, Sonic's way lower. People were super.
It's not way lower. It's 63%. It's one of the high ones too. You're forgetting, Evan. There is a Sonic Hive. We were part of it.
Oh, I know very well about the Sonic Hive.
Here's the RT score of the game.
I briefly dipped my toes in the Sonic Hive.
Also, and you guys would be so mad when I tell you what it is, but the Rotten Tomato score of this game is 86%.
Oh, this game or this movie?
The movie.
86% for a video game movie?
Like one more hint. It came out last year.
I'm going to feel so dumb when you say what it is.
No, it can't be Mortal Kombat, but that's the only video game.
No way.
That's the only
54%.
That's the only video game
skewered that Mortal Kombat
that was
movie
terrible, but that's the only video game adaptation I remember from last year.
Well, there is one more that you're forgetting. It started in VR. It's a little movie called Werewolves Within.
Oh, yeah, that one.
That's the highest rated video game movie.
Hold on. What's the sample rate? How many reviews is that?
We're not getting into that, Evan. We don't need to break apart my arguments here.
Okay.
Well, in terms of like blockbuster movies, I think Detective Pikachu would be number 1.
Yeah. I mean, John and I don't agree on Werewolves Within, but that's fine. That's another discussion.
I never saw it.
It's not good.
I mean, it's a fantastic movie. The problem is that Will Ashton, his taste in movies is distorted, I think is the word that Will himself used.
It's pretty cringy, but if you like cringe, go ahead, have fun.
I do like cringe, so that's actually
you do like
fair.
cringe. I have to admit.
Oh yeah,
I like well placed cringe, but it's tough sometimes.
I try not to be so discerning. I mean, give me whatever cringe you want.
So can I ask your guys' feelings on films like Assassin's Creed and Warcraft? Because I have those.
Well, Warcraft's not terrible.
Warcraft's not terrible?
No. That it's watchable enough. It made money too.
Warcraft was pretty boring, I thought.
I'm not a fan of I knew nothing about it. I've never played it. You were saying, Evan?
Well, no, I feel like between films like Assassin's Creed and Warcraft, you have the attempt of doing a video game movie where they try to be too faithful. Okay. And what happens is that you get messy video game storytelling because you don't have a standard rubric on how to tell a story through video games.
I think that's part of it.
And when you try to one-to-one it.
The other part is that they're also trying to start these big franchises with those movies. Mm-hmm. And that kills the storytelling, enough as it is.
Absolutely does. A complete different kind of association, but similar in that same quadrant. The Street Fighter movie. Have you guys seen the Street Fighter movie from the 90s?
I watched it on VHS, and much better than the Chun-Li one that they did.
Yeah, but actually that's it was a breakout movie for Ming-Na Wen, who would go on to be in
Mulan,
plenty of other films, including Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So she played
She's,
Jun-Li.
yeah.
But Raul Julia, his last performance ever, literally breaking down on screen for us, chewing as much scenery as he possibly could.
The memes.
And Jean-Claude Van Damme speaking his lines phonetically for some reason.
Yeah. I've seen the second Street Fighter film, but not the 1994 one.
The 94 one fascinates me because it misses the mark so much, but it's more expensive than the Mortal Kombat movie from like a year after.
I watched that movie when I was little, and I remember like the big speech he gives at the end of it. But like we
for me it was Tuesday, and you know where that came from? Conan the Barbarian. The
80s movie or the video game?
The movie, I think.
Okay, I know they made another Conan, but I don't think none of us have seen the most recent video game movie that came out, the new Resident Evil with Kaya Scodelario.
Welcome to Raccoon City.
Yeah.
I've not seen that yet. Apparently they tried. I just haven't seen it.
Yeah,
I have seen, I think 5 Resident Evil movies.
I've seen
0.
I've seen 2 or 3.
I've seen 0, and I skipped the Monster Hunter movie, and I think that one actually good.
Monster Hunter, it almost works. It's like sort of almost there.
That's the one. That's the Paul W.S. Anderson one, right?
Yeah, that's probably.
I don't think I saw that.
That's one of the few times I'm not big. As much as I love Paul Thomas Anderson, I'm not a big fan of Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yeah, no, don't forget Paul W.S. Anderson gave us Alien versus Predator in 2004.
Yeah, everybody makes mistakes.
I mean, was better than Alien versus Predator Requiem. I'll give it that.
Well, that's a pretty low bar.
How come we didn't talk about Monster Hunter on the show? Never got brought up.
I saw it on DVD kind of randomly. I forget why. I think
you didn't want to bring it up.
The release was kind of quiet too. Right. I feel like.
Yeah, it was in like the middle of award season, if I remember. But okay,
wanted to squeeze in just before to get some, some Best Picture nominations and Best Director nominations.
right. Just in case the Academy wants to consider. Speaking of squeezing stuff in, that's been I think this preamble has been quite, substantial. I'm happy with it. I feel like we've given the listeners a pretty good taste. Hey, look, we have Sonic the Hedgehog 2 coming out. The Borderlands movie is coming out. We got more video games coming up. We
got a Halo TV show coming out.
Hey, that's almost on the Gears of War, Ghost of Tsushima. There's so much good stuff.
The Last of Us with Pedro Pascal.
The HBO, that's also HBO, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going to be good stuff. It's going to be, well, we'll see. But let's talk about this movie, Uncharted.
I think it's about time that we actually talk about this thing.
I think it's because you guys want to talk about anything but Uncharted.
Well, so here's the thing, and this is not me distracting from talking about the movie. I think that there's a 2-prong approach that needs to happen when we discuss an Uncharted movie. It's not just the status of video game movies and the struggle of adapting them. And I think Will's tapped into it despite being not much of a gamer. But there's also adventure movies. I think the status of adventure movies is a wildly different landscape now than it used to be. I don't know if you guys agree with
we
that.
talk about it a lot because I think the last time we had this conversation was over Jungle Cruise. And that being that my favorite movies tend to be swashbuckling adventure movies. So Romancing the Stone, Princess Bride,
so much fun.
Mask of Zorro, Pirates of the Caribbean. These are my, give me those movies. I will always take them.
Yeah.
So even a movie like Jungle Cruise, which is a whole thing, I can get a lot of enjoyment out of that movie, much more than I guess some other people. But this movie, and I think we have a good spectrum of opinions here. I played all the Uncharted games. I think Evan, you played them, but Will's never played them.
Except for the PS Vita one.
Oh yeah, I didn't play that one either. Sorry. We'll have to leave that one in the wind. Who knows? But how that could have changed our entire opinions on this movie. But so we're familiar with the games. The games are really fascinating too because they themselves are like movies. They're inspired by movies. They're literally just like taking National Treasure and Raiders of the Lost Ark and putting them, just mashing them together. Modern Indiana Jones. I was going to ask,
so like the appeal of the games at a very basic level, the vibe I got is that it's basically what if you could play Indiana Jones in game form, right?
Yeah, you're literally playing a movie.
So isn't that making the idea of a movie kind of redundant?
You sound like every Redditor since 2008. Because that's
I think, if I may, to provide some clarity, because to John's statement, yes, like the Uncharted is known for, you play it like it's a movie, like you are actively participating as protagonist in a movie. The Uncharted game, the original one, came out in 2007. So it was one of the first flagships for the PlayStation 3. And that's when video games were really pivoting to, instead of focusing on gameplay, they were trying to expand on graphical fidelity and show their console, like a PlayStation 3 or an Xbox 360, like, this is a powerhouse that can give you a cinematic experience on your HD TV in your house, and it is going to blow your mind.
This is
like,
when Mass Effect was coming out. You know, like,
yeah, or
just
like
totally changing
the Peter
game.
Jackson King Kong game, or Metal Gear Solid 4. Like, the Uncharted games were the pinnacle of, we want to give you a wow, blow your mind IMAX, like James Cameron's Avatar experience from your couch.
Yep.
So,
and they succeeded, especially with the second Uncharted game. The second and the fourth one, I think, are easily the best. They're fantastic. And the movie takes mostly from that and the fourth game. I think it takes a whole set piece from the third, but clearly, you know, it's a video game that is totally indebted to an entire like film history, a type of film that is made. And it's like, it's a game of telephone. It's like, it gets translated into a video game, and now it's being translated into a movie. Even on that level, say what you will about the movie, it is kind of fascinating where we've landed with this movie in that sense, especially because we don't have we don't have a lot of modern Indiana Jones. Like, nobody's really tried to do this with like a totally new concept in film, really.
National Treasure.
Well, years
which
years
was
ago.
a long time ago now.
The Adventures of Tintin.
The new Tomb Raider with Alicia Vikander is an even funnier game of telephone, because that's taking way more from the modern Lara Croft games, which themselves are inspired from Uncharted, which Uncharted is inspired by this thing that also inspired Tomb Raider. It's just like, it's a mess. It's World War III.
So like popular ones like right now, like, are things that are not traditional adventure movies. I really feel like that big franchises right now, like Marvel, Star Wars, DC, Mission Impossible, they've kind of taken on what people want out of adventure movies and given them to them through a genre twist. I don't know if you guys would agree with that.
I mean, what's like an example you would put? Like, the genre twist in Jungle Cruise is that it's more comedy than it is like a straight up like old fashioned adventure.
You could say the same for the Jumanji sequels. That's like they're stuck in a video game. You could say the same for Mad Max Fury Road. It's a dystopia, but that's kind of like an adventure formula. Basically anything that, or like Aquaman, for instance, like that kind of has an adventure movie, but it's its own unique kind
plays
of aesthetic.
With it. Star Wars, the newer, like even Rise of Skywalker, try to call directly back. It literally has Oscar Isaac dressed up as like Nathan Drake at one point, right? Clearly they had that on their mind.
Like Star Wars was based on like the Hidden Fortress, so it's like you have by way
of Flash Gordon.
Yeah, exactly.
So everything, what we're saying is that nobody's original, and that's a perfect way to lead into our discussion of the film Uncharted.
What I was going to say is that if I'm a producer, I get the mindset of these are basically movies in game form. It makes perfect sense to adapt that game into a movie. But it's also just, like I said, kind of redundant, because it's like, well, the whole appeal of it is that you're basically participating in a film. Like, you are the main character.
But that's the thing. These Hollywood producers do not play games. And, well, I shouldn't say that generalistically, but at the time especially, right? Because this is 2008.
Henry Cavill, like the biggest gamer ever or something I keep reading about?
It has changed a bit, but we are talking about in 2008, right? So to what Evan was saying, Uncharted comes out for the PS3. They snatch up the movie rights like right away. Like, they knew that they had something
Sony.
Here.
They didn't have
it's Sony. Oh yeah, that's
right.
right.
The publisher.
Avi Arad was like involved from the get-go. There you go. And even this movie, they're kind of trying to usher in their PlayStation universe kind of thing. God help us. But this thing has passed through so many hands since then because of what you're saying, Will. Because they thought that they had like a gold mine with this, but then they start passing it to like director after director. At one point, I think David O. Russell was going to be writing and directing.
He was attached in 2008, I think, and Mark Wahlberg was going to play Nathan Drake in that version.
Mark Wahlberg was attached in like 2010. 10 or around that time.
Yeah,
and then he was going to be Nathan Drake.
That would have been just after The Fighter, I think.
Yes. Right. And so he was going to play Nathan Drake, but so much time has passed, he's now the older mentor figure, which is just
well, that's the thing
beautiful.
that I found so fascinating was that I was talking about that with my sister, was that like literally when they were announcing that they were going to do this movie, I was your age. Like, and now like, you know, like it's like I'm like, you know, it's just so fascinating how long this movie has been.
It was in
the
development
process.
hell.
Right.
Because and I think that's to what we were saying. It's like it was in development hell because they just didn't know how to do this. How do you make this movie? How do you overcome that hurdle of people like the game, not because they like that it's a movie, but it's like, how is that not better than a movie? Is because you get to be part of it. So how do you make a movie better? And I think they try and, you know, arguably we can argue whether or not they succeed with this movie to just kind of try to step up the stakes, try to do things that only movies can do. The story follows kind of like it's a little bit like the prequel sort of prologue kind of thing we get. It does kind of play out like a
prequel in a way.
A little bit, because like the third game, it doesn't directly open up with it, but there's like a part in the third game where you play a younger Nathan Drake. There's also a part in the fourth game where you play him and his brother, and so they kind of are like leading you through, like, you know, who he was when he was a kid, who his brother is.
They didn't even introduce his brother. An alternate Cliff Notes version of those two elements.
Well, that's the nice thing, is because they know how the story ends, right? I don't think they ever had plans for Sam Drake or whatever when they did the first game. The first game is such a standalone adventure. It really isn't anything like what the second and third games kind of pushed it to be. So this movie is like, yeah, it's a more considered and planned out kind of thing. They clearly want to do a franchise, but they're kind of easing us into Nathan Drake. He's not an established fortune hunter yet. In the first game he was just sort of like on yet another mission. He and Sully had been buds for a while. And this one, it's about how Nathan Drake, played by Tom Holland, who's a little bit of a younger version of the character in his 20s, meets up with and learns to, you know, maybe go for the gold with Sully, his mentor, played by Mark Wahlberg here. And it's a two-hander. I think this movie really like rests with them. They're in most of the scenes together. We also have Chloe Frazer, who shows up in the second game, and she is played by Sophia Ali, who I think she's been in some TV stuff. And then we also have Tati Gabrielle as one of the villains who's trying to hunt them down. And she works for, speaking of Mask of Zorro, Antonio Banderas, who is your, you know, typical standard billionaire kind of character, as most of these games tend to have. It's basically what the games are. There is a treasure. They are competing with overwhelming obstacles, including like an entire mercenary army trying to beat them to it. It's got it does have the National Treasure formula in that sense, but it's got a lot of the action of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So there's gunfights, there's amazing locations, there are lots of special effects, there are puzzles. It's a lot of movie stuff. So let's talk about the movie itself. What do we think of it? We'll start with you, Evan, since you are the guest. Guests go first. How would you sum up your feelings on this one?
Gosh, where do we start? I think the way that I feel about this movie is that on its face, on paper, it should have everything that makes the Uncharted games work. But for me, it didn't. And I think it's just a perfect storm of, I don't know if it really did capture the essence of what Uncharted actually is. Because even though we talk about, oh, it's a movie that you can play, it's basically Indiana Jones light beer. To me, what makes Uncharted as a concept work is Drake's charismatic camaraderie with his companion characters, Sullivan included. And I don't know if the chemistry between Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg work, at least. And I also don't know if the globe-trotting aspects where you go and solve puzzles and you do parkour and you have big-scale set pieces, I just don't know if the movie did enough in a 2-hour runtime that I would argue is any better than I could do going to watch a Let's Play of the third or fourth game.
I mean, screw it. Let's play. Let's just play
Just play it.
I love playing the games. They're so fun. They're very replayable.
I mentioned this in my review on the site, but and I kind of alluded to it early on in the podcast. But like when I say that like Uncharted is supposed to be like also a technical achievement, special wow factor thing. I would have expected them to do Mission Impossible style, practical stunts, practical sets, shoot it on an IMAX camera, and instead this kind of feels like a CGI studio, almost like a TV film.
You're describing
kind of
Sony's entire filmmaking approach, so...
okay, I didn't want to be rude.
We are so rude to
director
Sony.
Ruben
okay.
Fleischer, known for Venom 1,
yeah, that's right,
and
Zombieland
films, is also a TV director.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, I watched this and I'm like, this just kind of feels like this should have been a TV pilot.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's too big of a budget kind of thing. Although this was co-written by Rafe Lee Judkins, who did Wheel of Time. He's the showrunner for that. And so, I mean, on that note, like, you can get away with like these big sprawling sort of adventure things in TV form. We're there. But okay, so it sounds like it's your favorite movie of the year, and no complaints from Evan so far.
Well, it's the first film I've seen since Spider-Man: No Way Home in the theater.
Haha.
So
technicalities win again. Will Ash, it's your turn. Now, your opinion here is really important because you represent the majority of the population. Most people haven't played these games. I mean, let's just be honest.
Really? I feel like they're pretty popular.
They're popular, but they're not so popular that like we can say more than 50% of the public. Like, that's just not the case. But you represent like the key demographic. You are a man in your 20s.
John hit the nail on the head, because I personally, to sum up my feeling, this feels like this is just, we're going to sell Uncharted to everybody who is not already an Uncharted fan.
They knew the fans were going to come out, but they were looking at, how do we get Will Ashton in the theater? They used your name, Will. I have the email.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're like, how do we get this guy? He'll watch anything, but will he watch this?
Yes, you.
So go ahead. Well, yeah, let us know. Tell us all about your A+ for Uncharted.
I mean, I don't want to say this just because it's a video game adaptation, but there is a weird sort of surreal feeling watching this movie where it felt honestly like an AI wrote it. There's something about every single choice in the film that didn't feel human to me in a weird way. It just kind of felt like everybody was following the script that was written by a robot or that was pre-programmed into the thing. And I don't know, it's not that it's incompetent or that it's poorly made per se. It's lacking that human touch. I feel like it's
one of those like just above the bar kind of like, okay, this is what an acceptable movie kind of looks like.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a very Sony thing where I almost kind of miss the bombast of earlier Sony movies where, like, I want to say this is almost like a 2003 sort of blockbuster where it's coasting on the stars and having, these globe-trotting sets.
I mean, isn't it? You're describing the movie.
Sort of. But the thing is,
he just described Sahara with Matthew McConaughey.
Well, I was actually going to bring up Sahara because Sahara was a movie I kept thinking about. Because I was like, I was trying to imagine, I was like, if I was 13 years old and I was watching this movie, would I like it? And my mind's like, I'd probably think it's fine. Like, I wouldn't hate it, but I don't think I would be like in love with it because, like Evan was saying, like there is something, like a lot of it is CG. There isn't a sense that the actors involved are really having fun or really enjoying themselves. Like there are a couple moments where they kind of pow around and dick around and stuff like that. And that can be kind of amusing. But for me, when I was thinking back in the movie, I was like, when was I having the most fun? And it was when Tom Holland was just doing the bartending stuff, because that was just the stuff that felt human to me. Like
because he made a character Negroni and you're like, that's my buddy.
I was thinking, I saw that scene. I was like, I wonder if this is why John likes this movie.
To me, that feels like he's playing a different character for the first time.
Oh, like between all of his movies?
Older. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like his most unique performance I've seen him in is probably Devil All the Time. I mean, there is Cherry, but Cherry
where he's doing heroin and robbing banks and in the war.
What a strange choice. I'm waiting for him to do his Guns Akimbo.
That would be something else.
Man.
But okay.
His Swiss Army Man.
Yeah, exactly. I want him to do the things that Daniel Radcliffe had done after his Harry Potter career. Yeah. Like, I really feel like he needs to start doing stuff like that.
Well, Andrew Garfield.
Those couple didn't land, so.
He could go the same path as his fellow Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield had a very rich indie film career right after The Amazing Spider-Man.
That's true.
I thought you were going to say his fellow Marvel star Chris Pratt and play Garfield, to which I was going to
I don't know. Oh, yeah,
give you a very stern look. But,
no, but I do wonder if he's going to have a little bit of a Chris Pratt blockbuster phase before we get his more interesting indie phase. I don't know.
I guess. I don't know. I just get the vibe that he doesn't really, outside of Spider-Man, he doesn't really know what he wants to do as a star yet.
He wants to work out. Did you see him in this movie?
He was very shirtless. Yes.
He has muscles.
Muscular.
Good for him.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, like we named like all these movies he's done recently, and they kind of run the gambit as far as like an action blockbuster, you know,
and
like
dystopia.
YA dystopia, and a, you know, serious adaptation of a war crime drama, you know, and it's just like
or two. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's just like he's kind of going all over the place at this point, and you know, it's not bad. I mean, I admire him.
He's experimenting.
Experimenting, but it does seem like outside of Spider-Man, he doesn't have a sure foot on what he really wants to do as a star yet. And I feel like, I don't know, I didn't feel like he was super well cast in this role. Like, he's not terrible, but he just doesn't really have the charisma or the age, or even if they're going for someone like an ingenue sort of take on Nathan Drake, it does still feel like he's not quite adopting his character in the way that I feel like he should be. And I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out of turn because I haven't played the games, but it just doesn't feel like...
I think you're right, because I think the way that Naughty Dog designed Nathan Drake as a character is so inherent in what the populace understands that kind of character to be. And like, there's a reason that for years people have been asking an actor like Nathan Fillion to play this character, and actually there is a fan film floating out there where finally like he did. He's just gotten a little too old for it now, but it's like when you have that charismatic lead, like the Harrison Ford type, I think that Tom Holland has the capability to do something like that. Our editor-in-chief Allison saw this film with me, and she thinks that like, oh yeah, Tom Holland could possibly have the kind of cinematic presence, like a classic cinematic presence, like a Cary Grant, or like Harrison Ford was kind of like one of the last great guys to kind of have that screen presence. But I just don't know if he has the experience yet. He hasn't.
I don't think it's experience. I just think it's the fact that genetics. He is not that young anymore, but he looks young. He has a very boyish face. And he kind of has a boyish sentimentality and an energy to him that it kind of pigeonholes him, at least right now, in a certain kind of role that he can't really help.
Sure. And I really do feel like I don't know if we want to pivot into the Mark Wahlberg of it all just yet. But
I have to destroy your arguments between the two of you because.
Oh, okay. All right. Because as a Massachusetts native, I have to say I really don't think that Mark Wahlberg was the choice for this. And it's not like that there's Mark Wahlberg movies that I don't like.
Can I call myself a Massachusetts native? I was born in Worcester, so we can argue about it.
So we get it. But here's the thing. I liked him in The Departed. I liked him in Boogie Nights. I liked him in
Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen.
No. I liked him in The Nice Guys.
Nice Guys.
That was great.
Wait,
so like, I think of something like The Nice Guys.
Well, Other Guys.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The Other Guys.
Nice Guys was
with Will Ferrell. Yes.
Gosling.
Sorry. The Nice Guys is the Ryan Gosling one. Yeah.
I mean,
The Other Guys.
That was a good one. I was
gonna say Mark Wahlberg is such an inconsistent actor, but to your point, Evan, I feel like when he generally does well, it's when he is doing these sort of buddy things. Like you said, The Other Guys is a good example, or even something like Ted, which I mean, I feel like people don't really acknowledge that his performance in that film is kind of amazing because he is selling the illusion that he is like really good friends and has chemistry with a cartoon bear that's not even there on set.
That's the same thing I said about Daddy's Home, because what is Will Ferrell but not a cartoon?
Well, I'm not talking like, I don't know. I'm just saying that like whenever I do think about, or even something like I Heart Huckabees, where he's like outright playing a comedic sort of bubbling sort of guy, he tends to do better when he is acting in, you know, kind of piling around with someone else as opposed to like the sort of like stock action hero sort of vehicle, something like we mentioned, like Max Payne. Mm-hmm. So I could theoretically see him having kind of a, you know, like salt and pepper sort of, you know, like a kind of like rough and tumble chemistry with a young actor like this, but he seems to have basic contempt for this project and for even maybe Tom Holland at this point in this film. It just feels like he doesn't really want to be here or want to do this.
If I may, I think I might have an idea of why that is, because I feel the same way, and I feel like it comes down to a screenplay with too many cooks in the kitchen. There's like 5 screenwriting credits on this, and 2 of them is a pair of guys that has worked on, with Wahlberg before on like Transformers: The Last Night. And I think that maybe the dialogue is just a little too mean-spirited. Like, I understand that it's, oh, you're taking this naive kid and throwing him into a thieves' world. But what is supposed to be a light, fun, treasure hunting adventure where these characters get along, instead, they're constantly butting heads.
No, see, and
the movie is
that's the
adamant
point.
about teaching Nathan Drake that you can't trust anybody, and it kind of just feels like that Nathan's kind of getting bullied the whole time, and it kind of just brings the mood down for me.
I'm fine with that dynamic. I think the issue is more that we just don't have those moments where he is actually kind of soft with Nathan Drake.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
They feel like they're not. They feel like they're kind of just acting on their own in a bubble to me.
Okay.
Right, exactly. I think they feel unearned to me. Like the moments that feel more genuine are when he's just like, "Hey, you dumb kid, hey, come with me and don't trust anyone, or you're an idiot." Like,
yeah, and that's why they come up with like weird little beats in the screenplay. Like, I bought you a cat. Here's the thing with the bubble gum. Oh, you care about the treasure. Oh, what's the thing with my brother?
Look, okay. We've danced around it. It's time. It's my turn.
Yeah.
You guys got your day in the sun.
Okay.
I think you guys are dead wrong about this movie. Dead wrong in a subjective, everyone's opinion matters kind of way. I think that this movie is terrific. I think that it nails it for me, because I think the structure of this thing, like you said, you felt like it was written by an AI. I think that feeling maybe comes a little bit from how it is like oiled to a T. Like there is such a clear, like, this is gonna happen 30% in the movie. Here's how we get to it. But like where you see flaws in that, I see it as, yes, get through the story structure stuff in a way so that we get the full experience of the movie and we can focus on other things. I just think it's efficient in what it's trying to do. I actually think it's, for a movie that is under 2 hours, we get a lot of it. So I was very appreciative of that. I do think that it kind of takes what makes the game fun, which is the parkour, which is the modern Raiders of the Lost Ark aesthetic, and it just does it in a very serviceable way. But the reason I think it really works like beyond all of that is because it does have an emotional hook here that I do think is really interesting, and I don't understand like why it seems like I'm the only one who is like appreciating it. But I do think the relationship between these 2 guys played by, Holland and Wahlberg, and what they're doing, I think is very intentional. And like that contempt that he has for him is like so obviously put upon throughout the movie. So like, for example, it's like, it's kind of already been mentioned, but he really is looking out for himself. He feels guilty about, ushering this kid into this life. He feels conflicted about it. And the only character beat that I thought felt a little unearned, or that I was a little bit like, when are we going to get into Nathan's, motivations a little bit more? Because it's kind of murky what he really wants early in the movie. Like, obviously he cares about his brother, but they're kind of just playing it as like he's kind of interested because it's a treasure that he always wanted to get. Is it the money? But then as the movie develops, we find out, no, it's because this is how he feels close to his brother. This is how, he can try to like capture this dream he's had since he's a kid. And then maybe, through a series of like not trusting each other and betrayals and reversals, maybe there is somebody that he can trust, somebody that he can grow to appreciate. And I like how this movie sort of subverts some of the stuff involving like the romantic subplot and, what you would expect these characters to do. The characters actually learn their lessons and they grow, and I don't know, I just felt like there was progression, and this movie just moves, like it doesn't stay in one place too long. So I think it is a very viscerally pleasing and satisfying movie. I think that's why audiences are liking it a lot. And it's a perfect movie. No, it's not perfect, but it feels perfect to me because I loved it emotionally. That's my speech.
If I may, a couple of things, and I appreciate your take on it, John. I do. I do agree that Nathan's growth arc actually works a little bit. But what parkour?
I didn't want to say
it was the parkour that happened in the movie. There's parts where he did parkour.
Where? I feel like the editing was so fast I didn't really get to see it.
I don't know. There were some cool stunts he pulls off, and you can tell it's Tom.
There's a
chase
couple
scene
of
in
them.
Barcelona
I just feel
was
like
pretty impressive.
He climbed a rope.
I feel like there was no, besides him hanging out of the cargo plane, which we see twice. And I appreciate the editing trick that they do with that.
Sure, the different vantage points and yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I really do feel like that we don't get like something as iconic as Nathan hanging out of the train car in the opening of Uncharted 2, right? There's no like death-defying like grasp.
What?
That's
the whole third act. That's the whole thing with the ships.
The whole.
Those
can
were
we
the
spoil
money
it?
shots.
It's in the trailer.
It's in the trailer. Yeah. We don't. That's not a spoiler. That it's a set piece.
They felt like less impressive to me than a lot of other set pieces. I don't know. I really feel like that the visuals on that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I like the sword fighting on the decks on the boats.
Oh, so fun. See, where I disagree is I thought the visual stuff there was great, but the visual stuff I thought was way more weak to me was the cargo plane. It was like way too like smooth.
Yeah, see, they felt one and the same to me. It really feels like it's on an overlit studio set, and I'm just confused as to how we can be in a state in 2022 where video games and films are literally both using Unreal Engine 5 to render environments and sets and visual direction.
It's Uncanny Valley. That's the thing. I mean, unless you're John Favreau.
Yeah, the
and
Uncanny Valley and the way that the movie is composited feels less convincing to me than the video games somehow.
I do wonder what it would be like if we had like a true like master of that sort of thing. Like, the people who do all the effects on like The Mandalorian and stuff like that, where they're just like doing so much with so little by comparison. Because this movie has a big budget. Also, we should mention, and sorry, I know you're chomping at the bit, Will, to take me down a peg, but they are going to do another movie because this is making a ton of money worldwide. So we can expect another one, and we can maybe expect hopefully some improvement in terms of the effects and everything like that, because I do think it's important. But Will, what were you going to say that was going to break my heart?
Well, for one, I have to agree with Evan. I'm not quite sure what parkour you saw. There's like one scene where they run around and chase and stuff, but they're not like jumping.
Yeah, the one little chase in Barcelona, and then there's like a couple other things, and he does some stuff in the bar and the club, which was kind of cool. That was fun.
Yeah, I was trying to escape a tunnel.
But anyway,
I thought I had fun.
For me, the stuff that you're talking about, though, with the emotionality of the film and the stuff that I think, I don't know, I don't want to take away from your enjoyment of the film, but all that stuff felt super telegraphed to me. Like, it didn't feel earned or emotionally investing because none of it felt very sincere to me. It felt like a studio
felt like obligatory screenwriting beats, right?
Yeah. Either that, or it was just like the studio was watching the rough cut of the film and was just like, oh, we need emotional beats. Just write a scene where Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland talk about
ADR thing about a
Holland's
cat
brother again. Talk about Sam Drake again, and that'll do
cat
it.
Was cool. I don't know. I think I would give it way more credit than that personally.
I don't know. But in any case, I feel like, to go off what Evan was saying, if you are going to make an Uncharted film and you're going to differentiate yourself from the game or sell the game as far as like you can be a part of this, you have to do something where similar to Christopher McQuarrie in the most recent Mission Impossible movies, you have to be like, you're actually like trotting the world and doing these death-defying stunts, and you have to justify for the fans of the game being like, you're not going to get this in the game because real people doing these things. I'm not advocating for everyone being a Tom Cruise and risking their lives through art.
No, but you want to be on the edge of your seat watching a crazy stunt scene.
Or something to justify...
that Tom Holland's definitely capable of because he's Spider-Man.
Or
I'm just saying, I think they could do it in the next one.
I'm just saying, well,
sure, but this is this movie.
Right, I'm just saying that I think that they probably were more limited in this movie to like really go for it because they weren't sure, how much money this was going to make. And those big stunts. I mean, we remember the first Mission Impossible. They had to build from something.
But you're talking like you have the first person experience with the opening / mid-credit scene, or
the POV shot, yeah,
or whatever, where he's flying out of the plane.
This isn't your dad's third person Nathan Drake.
And I see that scene, and I think about like the scene in Matrix Reloaded where it's like all CG Keanu fighting all of the Agent Smiths. It's like I don't feel like I'm watching a movie. I feel like I'm watching computer renderings of Tom Holland falling from the sky onto a car. Or whatever.
It's just a little bouncy. It kind of takes you out of it.
It's playful, but it just doesn't feel real to me. There's nothing textual about it. Like, it just feels like I'm watching ones and zeros on screen,
so
which is similar to watching
everything that they set up with that cargo plane. I liked the Mercedes-Benz. I liked the cargo crates. I liked the causality, like John said, the vantage points.
The escalation.
But Yeah.
But the only real set piece I feel like had actual weight to it was the audition, or not the auction scene.
Auction house. Yes.
Because like he's like, I don't know if he actually did a stunt. I actually felt like there was some real risk. Like he's clearly knocking from Jackie Chan and Police Story or whatever, but at least there's some stunt work that goes into that and all that, and everything else just feels like wires on blue screens and stuff like that.
I actually enjoyed the auction house sequence, thinking back.
Yeah, I mean, like that.
It's cut together pretty nicely. It establishes a lot. You know, we get our villains in that. It's his first chance to try to like show his stuff. It's a different kind of location. And like I said, it's efficient.
He tries to suplex the really tall Scottish guy, and he just breaks his back over
They did find a fun way to...
That feels like Nathan Drake to me.
They found a fun way to... Because the games do the Raiders of the Lost Ark thing, or all the Indiana Jones, where you have like the one big character who keeps showing up again. They kind of get it... They do that, obviously, but they give it a little bit more flavor in this one, I thought. Like where you know, he keeps showing up, but he's got a best friend, and he has Scottish catch phrases, and I thought
his
that was
name
fun.
is Scotty.
Of course. I mean, what else would it be? So, yeah. I don't know. I think the reason, because you mentioned a lot of the stuff that didn't work for you on a technical level and the character level.
Right.
I think I can accept a lot of the shortcuts and the CGI stuff if I care about the characters. I think that's what it comes down to.
And
that's
I cared the
about
other
Nathan.
thing for me is I don't care about the characters because it feels like Evan was saying, we had so many screen rewrites where I don't really get, is it supposed to be more of like a father-son dynamic, or is it more like hidden friends or like brothers or like
brothers?
If I may, Will, because you haven't played the games, and I agree with you, but I've played all of them. And John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I really do feel like Mark Wahlberg is the crux of the problem with the character chemistry. Okay. That character is supposed to be the older mentor character trope. Like he's been around the block and he's training this other guy. So it's supposed to be like Bruce Campbell in that show Burn Notice, or like Han Solo to Luke Skywalker,
I was thinking,
or like
Last Crusade.
Burn Notice is a terrific comparison.
Isn't Last Crusade?
I think they were in conversation. What? Say again,
like Indiana Jones and Last Crusade, like with Sean Connery and Harrison Ford. Isn't that the
similar?
Of
Yeah,
course. Yeah, the older character that's been around the block, and they have a pre-established rapport with the lead, and they provide like a fun, more experienced banter that I think that a lot of folks agree we get a glimpse of in like a post-credit scene where Mark Wahlberg finally has Sullivan's mustache, and that's already in the trailers. So you're already seeing the best scene between the two of them before you even sit down.
I think that was there for me. I think that the thing you have to get with those characters is the contrast. You know, Nathan is kind of young and hungry. He is sort of like willing to do anything. Sully is a little bit more of like, all right, I'm going to take the easy way around. I got your back, but I'm not going to do anything too ridiculous. You know, he's a little bit more, like you said, more seasoned, more of a veteran. I think they have that here. I think their personalities, the chemistry for me was there because there is like a clear difference of like how they approach things, how they see things, and they're changing each other over the course of the movie. Like Tom Holland, you know, Nathan Drake in this, he becomes more like experienced. He becomes more wary of the world, and he learns from this guy, and he learns from Tom Holland being like, you know, I can care about somebody who isn't myself. I can learn to trust somebody. And so I think that stuff is there for me. I mean, it sounds like to you all, it's just sort of like, you know, it felt arbitrary, I guess, or artificial, but I think the actors sell it, you know, and I think that's just where the differences come in. And I guess that's why I think this movie is, you know, of all the theme park movies we're getting this year, I think this is one of the ones that, like, if we're going to get a franchise, I think this could be a really fun franchise.
I think that it definitely has potential. And if they make a sequel, I will absolutely see it again because I love this series. And I really think that it feels like a proof of concept movie for me. And I mean that in a good way, and I mean that in a bad way.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know who was going next. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I think about like what you're saying, John, where it's like the older mentor figure watching for a younger one, but doing the Indiana Jones model, I just think of The Adventures of Tintin, which I mentioned before. And I just think, you know, that's also kind of the same thing, also kind of video gamey because of the motion capture animation. I'm just like, I'd just rather watch Tintin. Why don't we get Tintin 2? We were promised Tintin 2, and now we got Uncharted.
I don't know if we're ever going to get that.
We're not getting that. We're not getting
That'd be nice.
National Treasure 3, but we're going to get Uncharted 2. Forget about it. What are we doing here?
All right. Well, I think we've made it clear where we all stand. It's up to you, listeners, to decide where you stand. If you decide to check out the movie for yourself, it's not playing in theaters. Let's play the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Oh,
this should be fun.
I'm so excited for this.
All right. Well, we have 184 reviews counted. One's mine, one is Evan's. So that cancels each other out, Will. So you don't have any sort of like, where are the tides going? Because I think it's clear which one, how we rated this. But we have 184 reviews counted. We'll start with Evan. You're the guest. What do you think the Rotten Tomatoes score is for Uncharted at the time of this recording?
Okay, I've been so busy I haven't been able to even look at social media, even if I wanted to. I have not touched Rotten Tomatoes. This is a stone cold guess just based on this conversation. I'm gonna guess like a 52.
Okay, that's your guess. Will Ashton, what about you?
I'm gonna say 38%.
This is why Will's kind of the king of this game. You know, he's only 2 off. But Will, do you think you're too
40?
Too like low or too high?
I think it's 40.
It's 40%. And it's kind of stayed like at 40, like over the weekend. As reviews have counted, it was like it kind of went to 39, then it went back up to 40. Just like hovered between the two.
I don't know. Like if I didn't give this a rating, but like if I did, I'd probably give it like a C. Even though I'm coming at it pretty negative, I feel like I was pretty ambivalent more than I was critical of the film watching it. Like I was just like, yeah, it was. Like I can't recommend it, but it's not awful. And I feel like that's the way most critics are kind of coming at this. Like I can't really recommend it on a good conscience, but it's not the worst thing in the world right now.
Well, see, I forgot to ask, what did your sister think of the movie? Because you saw it with her. What was her take?
She said it was...
Yeah, because he said in interviews, Tom Holland was actively trying to be looking like a stud through this film.
She said it was better than she thought it was going to be.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Audience score. This could be interesting. 1,000 plus verified ratings. That's a lot. A lot of people saw this movie and rated it on Rotten Tomatoes. So we'll start with you this time, Will Ashton. What do you think it is?
I'm going to go high. I'm going to say 92%.
And Evan?
I'll guess 70.
90%. This is why
90%?
Will's the king. And yeah, because I don't think you guys understand. The movie's great.
See, I guess Will, we're asking too much from it.
Yeah, you're trying to analyze it and use your heads and think rationally. And I just what do you think?
Realistically,
no, I want it to be like the other adventure movies that I already like.
Of course.
I mean, in a fairly stale cinematic market where a lot of youngsters probably haven't seen Raiders of the Lost Ark or even the National Treasure movies or even hell, maybe not even Tintin, they're probably seeing this and it's like trotting the world with characters who are bantering. Whoa.
I will say,
there is a lot of been there, done that with the genre. That is for sure.
There is at least one friend of the show I noticed gave it a positive review, and that was Dan Merle. He liked the movie.
Oh, no kidding. I watch Dan Merle like every week.
Yeah. He's been on the show a couple times.
Yeah.
I was on, I don't know, Evan, if we knew each other at the time, but I was on Movie Fights once, and that's when I met him.
Oh, you had mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when I met Dan, and we should have him on the show again. We'll talk about something.
I don't think I've actually ever talked to him before, so I'd be excited.
Oh, have you not been on either time?
Well, I know the first time was the Justice League conversation, which I was out of town for, and then I don't know what the second one that you're referring to is.
Second one, you made some other excuse. Yeah, you didn't want to meet him. Yeah.
No, I don't know what I want to meet him. What I don't know what the other time was. I thought that was the only time he's been on the show.
No, he was on before because we were talking. I think it was about the Snyder Cut too, but I'd have to look in the archives.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't a
Cinema
review
score
of
time.
Snyder Cut. I remember it was like you guys talking.
We were talking about it at the release, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Cinema score. This is, of course, very arbitrary and it never makes sense. But yeah, Will, what do you think the cinema score is for Uncharted?
B+.
And Evan?
I guess a B. I'm probably gonna go B, just so I don't say the same thing based on that audience score.
You should have gone with the same thing. You got to just pick what Will picks, Evan. It's B+.
I don't want to be a Price is Right cheat.
Yeah, that's true. I can respect that. All right, and then last we'll do the Letterboxd rating average. Now, 5 points in between. 35,000 people have logged it on Letterboxd, our favorite social media app for all cinemaholics. We'll start with you this time, Evan, so you can't cheat.
I won't cheat. Based on the information provided to me, I'm gonna ballpark 3.8.
3.8, and then Will Ashton.
I was gonna say 2.8.
This is why Will's the king. It's 3.0.
Fascinating.
Oh man.
Only 0.2 off.
Okay, so the Letterboxd crew agrees with us.
For sure. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Oh, Matt Donato gave it a positive review, another friend of the show. But yeah, I mean, every other person I follow on Letterboxd besides Matt and Leon Brill, everybody else is like 2.5. Oh, Sarah Clemens gave it a 3. So she's about where I am. So
David Chen gave it
there
a 3.5.
can be miracles. Who?
Out of David Chen.
Dave Chen? Oh, I don't see his on here, but
he just posted it earlier today.
Oh, I guess I'm just not seeing everybody for some reason. It says 31 watched, but oh yeah, now I see it. Yeah, he did give it 3.5. So there you go. Lots of other friends of the show I'm starting to see now. Allison from Young Folks, she was like, you know what, 2 out of 5. Let's just put that out there.
Oh, the only I saw the film with her. The only thing I heard her emote was a guttural ugh when she saw the PlayStation Studios logo.
It is a pretty, even for me, that it's a pretty cringe like way to start.
Meanwhile, her husband just the same day we saw it jumped ship from PlayStation to Xbox.
Wow, went to the Xbox Series X.
He got an Xbox Series X.
I want my PS5. I'm gonna get it someday, I hope, but. Yeah, yikes. Okay, well, that is Uncharted. You can check it out for yourself if you are so inclined, or you can play the games. We do recommend, I think we can all agree, except I guess not for Will because he's never played them, but Evan and I can agree on one thing, and that's that you should play Uncharted. It's totally worth it. There's like
absolutely. Even if you just want to jump in on 4, the remaster for 4 and the spinoff of 4 starring Chloe Frazier, who was in the film.
I think you can just skip the first one because the first one is a little dated. You could honestly, just jump right into 2.
Just play 2, 4, and Lost Legacy. You're good.
3's not that bad.
3's okay. It has some pacing problems, like this movie.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, we'll end on that note for you, Evan. Is there anything that you want to plug before we say goodbye? Anything you're working on besides my nerves?
I've been so busy that I don't have a whole lot to plug. Just go to theyoungfolks.com where you can read stuff written by me and John Negroni
and Will
and all of our wonderful writers. If there's anyone I'll plug it, I'll plug my gracious brother who is an incredible illustrator.
Dylan,
and you can. Yeah, Dylan Griffin, and actually, I think we've got a collaboration with him coming up on an article pretty soon.
Yeah, actually. He wrote one of our biggest pieces of the year in the film section last year, right?
Yeah, he reviewed the Rurouni Kenshin, the beginning, the last film. So
also worth checking out. Speaking of anime or adaptions of, sounds good.
That's on Netflix. It's very good.
Very, very good. And and Will, I know we have Hitting Over the final season kicked off. I don't know. Have you talked about it on the show yet?
The final season or this new episode that's coming up?
This new episode that's coming out.
Yeah, the new one. I don't want to spoil too much because I believe it's going to be coming out on Tuesday, but we recorded it.
Cool.
And if it turns out as well as the recording process, it's probably going to be one of my favorite episodes we've done in a long time. So I'm very excited to hear that again and to release it. That should be out hopefully on Tuesday.
My favorites are always the Christmas specials, but I'm a little bit like that.
Those are fun, yeah.
We are hoping to review a couple other films this week coming up. We have Dog, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Just working on the scheduling now. Not sure if we're going to get to The Cursed because we already talked about 8 for Silver, and I don't know if I'll be able to see The Cursed. Will,
I was going to say I don't remember 8 for Silver particularly well, and I don't know if they've changed anything between.
They did.
They did.
Yep. Yeah, they changed a bunch. I heard.
Oh, really? Like what?
They apparently they did some like editing and post production work on it. A few different things like that. I think enough, not a ton, but enough to like justify rewatching if we were going to do a full review. But that's the thing. I don't know if I'll be able to see it.
And that's the thing is I don't remember the original cut super well.
Right. So I don't think I'd be able to pick up the differences.
Right.
Well.
So I just kind of figured we'd scrap that. But if there's a huge demand, I mean, I'll see it, whatever.
Hey,
but.
yeah. And if you like your werewolf movies and you're like, I love Werewolves Within. That was one of the best video game movies I've ever seen, maybe the highest rated. Then you should probably check out The Cursed.
Oh, man.
But yeah, that'll do it though for us for now. We'll see you all in the next one. And Evan, we always sign, well, not always, but we usually sign out from the internet. I say from the internet California. Will says from the internet Pennsylvania. You can say whatever you want. You could say the internet
signing out from Internet New England.
There you go. Internet New England. I'm Internet California. See ya. And I'm
Internet Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's a different way to do it, but we'll see you next time.